Whistleblowers and community leaders from across South Africa gathered at the Women's Jail at Constitution Hill for the 2025 Human Rights Defenders. People's Hearing shared their testimonies there of harassment and violence faced for challenging state and corporate power. Civil society groups are now urging Parliament to pass legislation to protect human rights and environmental defenders. For more on this and the outcomes of that gathering and the calls that are being made by the civil rights and human rights defenders, we have campaigner Sifiso Dlala from GroundWork who joins us for this discussion. Kabateli, good to have you and thank you very much for coming on this afternoon. Who are the human rights defenders? I mean, what constitutes human rights defender?
Good afternoon, Thabo, and thank you for having me, and good afternoon to your viewers as well. So a human rights defender, in the instance that we are defining it, it's communities that are standing up to protect their rights, whether it's land, whether it's mining, whether it's environment. So they do their work to ensure that they use the pieces of legislations that are there to protect the country and advance the human rights protection. And then whistleblowers are usually individuals that have information, whether from inside or any other way, but they're able to have credible information, the likes of Babitha and many more that are coming, and many more that are in hiding at the moment.
Yeah. So what would you say these are not protected in law? Because, I mean, if we were to look at the fracking story, for example, that would have been taken by human rights defenders to court successfully using the law, and that, in a sense, would have had a positive outcome. Kolobeni is another issue where legally there are instruments that are challenging that particular process. So one would say there's a lot of protection in law for human rights defenders that they can use.
Thabo, South Africa has one of the most progressive constitutions in the world, and our country's history has always been centered around activism, the protection of human rights, if you understand and note. So I think at the moment our government does not look into the protection of human rights, or does not even recognize by law. Yet the constitutions, as you correctly put it, has the element of human rights defenders, because it is the duty of the states to ensure that life is protected. And Section 24 of the Constitution speaks about environment that is not harmful to health. Yet we see this with big corporations, like you're saying. The Kolobeni community in the Eastern Cape has been fighting against titanium mining for more than 15 years. And we've got several leaders there being killed. So in other areas like Mtubatuba, where Mamfikile was also assassinated in 2020. So that's why we were having a people's hearing around the 22nd of October. Actually, that's the day that she was assassinated. There are many other areas. Just yesterday, Thabo, we were at the Pietermaritzburg High Court because Utogo Nkosi from the Newcastle area that has been standing up for the rights of communities around that area with different minings, including Kwezi. She has been in hiding, she has been under threat. And yesterday we also saw the tactic of a mining company just putting intimidations into her to go to court and using those laws to ensure that people are in court. So can you imagine if it's an individual who has no civil structure to support them, because you have to also hire an advocate to represent you. And that is prolonged. And so that by that time, when they deal with you with these strategies, that people in your community and in your structure are also scared, because they are scared that they'll be subjected to that, and they do not feel or know that there are other avenues. So internationally, there are laws. Even the United Nations has a special rapporteur on human rights defenders, who also has been part of the Mamfikile Jangase case. She wrote a letter to the South African government in 2020 requesting the investigation of Mamfikile's case. Nothing has came by. And just last week, when we were having another commemoration of Mamfikile, she stated that after 5 years, she has yet to receive any communication from the South African government regarding Mamfikile's case. But when you go internationally, South Africa is known and has been signing these international accords, and that protects and promotes human rights defenders and the human rights in its totality, because there is no rights that is superior to another.
What emboldens the resistance of these corporates to the extent that you're putting it in sometimes illegal tactics, underhand tactics that are being employed? I'm asking you this because there are, if, for example, if we look at the Kolobeni matter, instances where some in the community who are leaders tend to side with these corporates, and that in itself tends to create this kind of division where some are for and some are against, and it becomes very muddied as to who's defending what.
So you're quite correct. So when big corporations come, remember their sole interest is to make profits. And that can never happen if you do not have a buy-in from the people, from the community. So when you sell something, when you sell an idea to people, not everyone will see it in the same manner. So it's always a modus operandi for mining to be able to proceed. There has to be conflict in those communities, and they are able to get a buy-in from the traditional leaders. And I'm saying that because in communities where the traditional leader sides with the community, I can cite examples just like Kolobeni, where the headman or the head woman, was listening to what the communities are saying, because the community has the right to say no to mining, as it was inserted by the constitutional courts in the Amadiba crisis matter. So once you find that, Thabo, there will be, there will be people who are standing to benefit, and there are those who are benefiting from mining. And in most cases, those are just certain portion, a smaller portion of it. And Thabo, to bring to your attention, what we've seen is that all those who are for mining have never been assassinated. All those who are for mining has never been intimidated. Yeah. But it's those that are advocating for their rights to life, rights to a safe and clean environment that are always under threat. And as I'm speaking to you, we have a lot of people that are in hiding for years just because they're standing up for their rights. For example, if you look at the case of Abahlali Basemjondolo, who have been existing, looking for land rights, dignity, and housing, they've had their leaders as well as their members, 25 of them assassinated in the past 20 years. And it's very seldom that you hear of cases even making it to court.
Yeah. Now, in seeking to of course, protect land and resource, we've had these debates, and we would bring corporates on, we would bring human rights defenders on, and the argument from the other side is always the fact that whilst the human rights defenders are looking to protect farmlands, water resources, forests from harmful business operations, they fail to balance that with the economic needs of the communities.
Look, one of the strategies or the word that is spread around is that people are anti-developmental if they are fighting for their rights. What we've seen in the past is that there's never an equal share or respect shown by these mining companies or these big corporations when they are approaching communities. If you can look at the many cases that we've taken to court, for example, the Lamosa case, one of the findings from the court is a lack of proper consultation, because consultation is tedious. So even government, even the state has failed to properly consult communities. So when people are exercising their rights using the pieces of legislations that are there, they are seem to be blocking development, because we win cases in court, which means whatever we are standing up for is indeed constitutionally correct. But because the greed and the collusion between the states as well as these big corporations will always put the rights of communities at the backseat.
Now, are you looking to be included in something like what is being touted about, a whistleblower protection kind of legislation?
So, as I did mention to you, Thabo, the difference between a human rights defender and a whistleblower. So Parliament is doing that. What we have seen politically is that at the moment there's the Madlanga Commission that's looking at ensuring that the political killings are given special attention from the SAPS. But that's not the case with human rights defenders. It's because it's politicians that are killed. It's not ordinary human rights defenders. So when we were meeting at the people's hearing in October at Cornhill, we are putting together all the testimonies that are coming from the different communities, because we have marched to the local police stations. We have marched to the national police offices. We have marched even to the presidency at the union buildings. But there's nothing that we are getting from there. So now our next move is to go to Parliament. So with everything that we did through the people's hearing, we want to formulate what we term as a model law, because Parliament has been shying away from it. So when we create this model law, we want to lobby Parliament to help them formulate a piece of legislation that has everything that we would want to see, not a piece of legislation that comes to Parliament and then gets to people. But this time around, we want to get it from people to get it to Parliament, and then it's signed into law, so that we are able to be in line not only at the international level, but also at regional level. Because if you see the things that are happening for now in Tanzania, the humiliation of human rights, the treatment of human rights in that country shows that this is not a South African thing, this is not an African thing, but it's an international thing.
Yeah, at a high level, because of time, not getting really deep into them, but the three key pillars of the law, what is the thinking around them?
So here, it's about the representation, it's about the condemnation of those who are killing human rights. It's about the police having the capacity to be able, because what we've seen is that when we go and open cases of intimidation, that's the end of it. You just get a case number and that's the end of it. It does not even get investigated. And there's no space or mechanisms where we can use to ensure that we hold the SAPS, we hold the NPA, as well as the states, to ensure that once it's reported, it must be given an opportunity, it must be investigated, it must be prioritized, and condemn all those that have happened so that it does not happen willy-nilly.
Mkabate, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. That is Sifiso Dlala, a campaigner for human rights defenders at GroundWork. Now,